Hello, guys, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me with this other contribution module training. In this one, we're going to be going over just the many different ways that we can enter in offering records in addition to that typical manual entry that we'll be adding it into. And then also we'll be going into reports and then a little bit in utilities as well. So definitely the Vanco and Webtools imports are definitely important, and then also just kind of wrapping up for the contributions module for this session. So let's see, making sure. Yep, I am sharing my screen. So, just to let you guys know, these webinars are recorded. And if you've registered for this webinar, you're definitely going to be getting that recording sent off once it's finished. And it's also going to be posted into our help center and then also available through the Shepherd Staff software as well under the help button and then training and then videos. So it'll definitely be available to you even if you have to cut out early. So just as a brief introduction, my name is Taylor Brown, and I've been working here with CTS for a little over 5 years, been really enjoying it. So thank you so much for offering this opportunity to me. So I'm glad I get to talk to all the different churches and everything. Since I am a diva, I prefer that, only I am the one that is talking. But if you do have any questions, even if you don't have your phones or microphones on, you can definitely go into the question chat area and enter in those questions. I'm not going to be looking over at them very often, but I will have my manager, Rod Kyles, just kind of hanging out there and answering questions as he can. And any that he doesn't get to, we'll definitely dedicate some time afterwards to answering all those questions. And then anything that's more, specific to your database or your records, we can always follow up on as well. So any sort of questions, we'll definitely address them, in due time. So thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and just go into our overview. So the previous webinar, we went over creating records. And so in addition to that, into the manual entry of offering records, we're also going to be going into additional data entry methods that you might be interested in using, including ones that are going to be away from the church computer, the physical computer. And that can include exporting and importing batches so that you can import and export from other areas that have the Shepherd Staff software, even if it's not directly networked with your current computer. Then we're also going to go into more of the entering in gift in kind, any non-monetary offerings. Then we'll also kind of show how to make recurrent offerings, just lightly, just touched on that last time, but we're definitely going to be creating recurrent offerings in case there is something that, is pretty recurring, for people who are donating, so that you don't have to create it from scratch. Then we'll also take some time in showing the new Vanco e-giving import option and process. There have been some updates in the 9.1 database so that, it makes things just a little bit easier, and it applies on things relating to like reconciliation and also fees as well. So we'll definitely be taking plenty of time with that as well. And then finally, we'll also kind of show Webtools, which is an online sort of option so that you can put in those batch entries and then just download them to the church computer at a later time. Then we will spend the other half just going over the various reports and views that are in the contribution module, just anything to get you that data that you're looking for any of your office and administration needs. And then we'll also just lightly go over some of the utilities that are available in the contribution module for a few different situations, just depending on what you need to do for your usual tasks. We'll wrap it up with just a small little true or false quiz, and then we'll dedicate the rest of the time to Q&A session afterwards. So we're going ahead and getting started. We have a lot to cover, so I'll go ahead and start on my Shepherd staff, opening this up. Ooh, moving it back over, moving it over, there we go. Going in as the system administrator. So I may be able to see more than what you have permissions for, but everything that you are going to see is going to be available in the 9.1 release of Shepherd Staff. And one of those main features that have been updated is going to be the Vanco import. So that's probably what you're going to see is the most updated or what looks the most different between like 9.0 and 9.1. So going ahead and continuing. Bringing it back over. There we go. So we are still going to be in this contributions area and reopening it here. We do have these same tabs that we went over last time. Most of all, we stayed within the giving area and just kind of creating those records, whether they were funds, the contributors, or envelopes also, the pledges, and then also the offering batches themselves. And typically, most users are just going to go ahead in this batch area and just kind of add in a new sort of in progress sort of template by clicking on the add button, selecting the batch date that they need, and just entering them in all manually. So this is very typical of when you just have a list of contributors and people who've already counted, then you can just input that information here. And from here, you can select, you know, whether it's going to be an other giver, anonymous, or a loose offering, or a particular contributor. And then you'll be able to choose between the different funds that are available. We'll go ahead and put in $10 for this amount. And then there are just the various fields like check number and description that you can enter in and unlock if you needed to. But otherwise, these main three options are all that are required, so to speak, for you to add in a line item and have something within that batch. So that's what we kind of went over previously. And saving here, we do have that unposted batch. So there are, you know, many different situations, especially, you know, with people working at home and, you know, people, you know, are at different areas, not exactly always within the church office. So there are a few different ways that you can kind of finagle entering in offerings, even if, you know, you're not all in one place. And one of those ways is to just kind of take this unposted batch that we just created and kind of creating a file that you can move from one program of Shepherd Staff, maybe email it to someone else, or, you know, put it on a USB and then physically take it to the church database and just import it from there. So it's just kind of a very, very physical, just maneuvering of files. And in order to do that, whether you are working from home or just working in that different area, you will have Shepherd Staff as you know, as we see it here, and you will go ahead and enter in that batch just as you normally would. And from here, you will go down to the import button. I know it sounds a little turned around, but stick with me. If you click on the import button, we do have various ways that we can import information from. And the first option would be Vanco, but I will be back in just a second. But for the Shepherd Staff batch, the second one, this would be a way for you to just import from something that was just taken from another database. So if we click on here and select it, it will open up a little option here for us to export. So once we export this particular batch, so I'm working at home and I'm choosing to export the batch that I just created, Then I can save this to a file, and it will be this con batch named file. And when I go ahead and save it to either a USB or to another folder that then I can maybe zip and maybe email to someone at the church, then once I have that file, I'm able to go back in here on the church computer, go to import, select Shepherd Staff Contribution Batch, and then when I come back here, instead of export, I'm going to click on select file to import, so that then I can find that con batch and move through the file explorer, find that particular file. I'll definitely know from the date modified that it is recent, and I'd be able to open it and import it as I need. So as we can see here, if I go ahead and close this after selecting to import, we can see here that there is this duplicate now. So I was able to export my unposted batch and then re-import it as a duplicate. If you find that you have something, if you need to update any of the uh, givers or any of the offerings in this batch, since they are unposted, it is still a work in progress. So in the event that you create a duplicate like we have here, we can delete it or we can edit it as needed. But once we have gone ahead and manipulated it the way that we need to, everything is looking good, we can go ahead and post that particular uh, batch, so that then we can just uh, post that batch as if we had made it within the church computer itself. So otherwise, once you have imported it into this batch area, whether it's Vanco or from an Excel file or from another Shepherd Staff database, once it gets into the unposted batch area, it's all basically work as usual. You would just go ahead and post it as needed. It will ask you if it has a batch posted to the same date. We'll say yes. Then we can create those deposits in finance if we needed to, creating those attendance batches if we need to, and then print out that batch entry information if we need that. So, that is just one of many of the abilities to bring in unposted batches as needed. Some of the other offerings that we have, I will be back to the importers in just a second, but we also do have the gift in kinds, and then we do have the offering area as well, where we can also create just individual records just by clicking on the add button and then entering in that information, both for the gift in kind, the non-monetary information, and then the individual offerings as well. It is important to note that if you make the offerings or gift in kind, well, especially the gift in kind, but also the individual offerings without creating a batch, it does not create that deposit in finance. So if you ever needed to make one separately, you do want to make sure that you have that deposit manually entered into finance as well. But back to the batch area here. We also have the ability to kind of look at these different offerings and also create recurrent offerings. So I said we were back in the batch. I'm sorry. We can go to the recurrent offerings if we ever needed to add in a new one. Where we have a particular contributor, maybe if someone wants to create many different offerings to many different funds, and it is something that they do on a frequent basis, then you can create that recurrent offering. We'll go ahead, let's leave the Abbotts alone for right now, and let's mess with the Watsons for right now. If they wanted to give maybe $50 weekly every single Sunday, you could choose that date, Maybe they wanted to start in the beginning of August and maybe all the way through the end of December if we needed to. It is important that you want that beginning and ending date to end up on the same day of the week, just so that the system doesn't get confused. But once you have those ending dates selected, you can then kind of choose exactly how you want to divvy up this $50 amount. So if we wanted to, we could select 5 different funds and put $10 each. Slowly but surely. And then we can divvy that up so that we definitely know that everything has been equally distributed, nothing is remaining. And once everything looks good for that recurrent offering, we can save it. And then whenever they come up and you see that deposit coming, you can definitely just generate that particular recurrent offering, whether it's all of the displayed templates, if you have many of them, or if you wanted to just select, just pick and choose which ones recurred, then you have that option. Once you press continue, it will create a new batch for this giving couple, so that when you go back into batches, you can see that that unposted batch has been created. And just like all unposted batches, you can reopen it and edit it as you need. But back to the batches, I really mean it this time. Going back to the different ways that you can import this different information. And one of those main ways would be from the Vanco e-giving site. So Vanco, in case you don't know, that is an e-giving site that we integrated with our products that allow you to allow your congregation to either send donations through online donations, or I think they also offer texting. But either way, whenever they send that information to them, they normally have to send in a donation that has both their name, usually their address and information, I think, as well, and then also, their payment information. And Vanco takes care of that on their cloud-based system. And then those offerings can then be integrated and actually downloaded into Shepherd Staff so that you don't have to create everything manually. And it does offer a unique way that you can kind of connect the envelope numbers to the Vanco IDs so that when you do regularly create those batches, that they are automatically attributed to the right people and to the right funds. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and open up Vanco. And in this first area, we have our client ID, user ID, and password. So whenever you're managing your Vanco, you're going to be given naturally login credentials for you to, manage your own account. But if you request it, they'll also provide you with syncing credentials. Normally, you can just reach out to Vanco, explain that you're going to be syncing with Shepherd Staff, and they'll give you these credentials to put in. And once you have those specific client IDs, you can then kind of press or click on this pencil icon, and you can save that information in this new Vanco system. So you don't have to keep putting them in every single time for, whenever you're going in to import these batches. So just a few extra little tidbits that we've gotten from feedback for different people. Once you have put in your credentials here, then you're going to select exactly what offerings you want to pull from. And if you're going to be doing this, probably about every week, or maybe if it's going to be a monthly task, then you can also select a month. I'll go ahead and just select this past week. I said the past week. So from the 3rd to the 10th. and then I can pull in all of those different offerings. Actually, I'll include today as well, and you'll see why. But including, just the past few weeks of offerings. Over here, people are given a Vanco ID, and when you're managing on your Vanco site, you can choose whatever their Vanco ID is. You can update that ID to make sure that it does match your envelope number to make things just a little easier. Or you can enter in the Vanco ID into their Shepherd staff record as well, which we'll get into in just a second. But for more or less, regardless of whether you're just starting out or not, I do recommend keeping this box checked, just so, if there's an ability for the system to make those connections for you, to keep you from having to do some manual work, then, I would always recommend that. And then you're always going to be able to update, things within this view as well if you need to. The next sort of checkbox that we have here is whether or not you want to find any people who have not been matched to the envelope numbers. These might be new people, whether or not you want to match them to other givers. And, other givers are people who usually just have one donation, and then you can kind of print off a statement for that one donation. If you feel that the ones that you normally see have already been taken care of, then you can kind of match those any sort of envelope that comes in as a surprise. You can make that into a other giver. You have that option, or you can choose to change that when you download the batch. So it's just completely up to you. The system will also notice that each fund that you set up on the Vanco side will have a number. And if that number does coincide with a number that is in Shepherd staff, it will automatically, connect those funds. So if you, maintain consistency between the two, the system is going to make a lot of correct assumptions and make those connections for you. If you decide not to do that, or if maybe some of the funds have odd numbers for any sort of reason, you can click on this Vanco Fund Override button, and then you can make those manual selections so that if there is a Vanco fund number for whatever that fund number is, to make sure that it is attributed to the general fund and then all the way down if you needed to. In addition to, making those manual connections, you can also choose that if you just have a new fund in Vanco, whether it's for fees or for any other reason that doesn't have a connection with any of the other funds, you can choose to map them to a specific fund, whether it is a general fund, or you can just leave it up to creating an error and just letting you know that there's an invalid fund. It's just completely up to you. And, you can also just strategize and just move those funds into one general fund if you needed to. Once you kind of have all of these settings in mind, you'll go ahead and click on this download button. And if there is a problem, this thing is not shy. It's definitely going to let you know. For my test site, I'm going to click on this. You guys do not have to do this, but just because it's a test site, I'm going to click on this and enter in this code so that it knows I'm using the test site. But once you have all of this information ready, you'll click on the download button, and there should be a little loading button that'll show that it is in fact loading. Might take a couple of seconds, just depending on how many offerings there are, your internet connection, etc. Usually, if you're just going to be doing it every single week, it'll happen pretty quickly. Then, since we have this list that we have available here, then we have these different views that are available for Vanco as well. The first one being they're unposted and not in a batch. This means they are not in Shepherd staff at all. These are brand new. Shepherd staff has never laid its eyes on it. And you can see for a lot of them, they just have not yet been deposited. So they have been settled to Vanco, but they haven't been deposited to your bank. And that deposit date is what groups those batches together so that when they go over to finance, then they can be reconciled. So if they have not been deposited, they can't be brought down just yet. It's just kind of processing right now, but the system does recognize that they have been added in. So they are in fact coming. With that in mind, scrolling a little bit further down, you can see that, if there is no status, then they already are basically being added already. They've already been deposited, so everything is good for this to be imported. If there is any sort of error over here, whether it's a invalid envelope number or maybe a missing Vanco ID, this basically means it doesn't know who this offering is supposed to be attributed to. And you can scroll over and kind of take a look, see if maybe you recognize the Vanco giver ID. If you don't, it does offer, a neat little options that when you go to copy the ID, just that Vanco ID specifically, if you copy it, it kind of brings up this little message that lets you know that on the Vanco side, it has Dowling Arlene on it. So it just kind of lets you know what the person's name is. And so if you kind of recognize that name, then you know that it's going to be attributed to that person. So, and it gives you further information. So you can now paste it into that Vanco ID field that's in the contributor information, and that you can click on view to add in that window. So we'll click OK. And with this still selected, we'll click on the view button here. And since it recognized that person's name, it'll actually pull up Arlene Dowling's record. And if it doesn't recognize the name in the contributor details, then it will offer you to add in a new contributor so that then you can create a new contributor if they're in the membership option, or if you wanted to consider them to be an other giver. But for the case of Arlene Dowling, so she is definitely a contributor, we just need to add that Vanco ID or that number to her Vanco record, or from her Vanco record to her Shepherd staff record. And right now we can see that her envelope number is 116, and maybe she just really likes that number. Maybe that just works for your numbering system. So that Vanco ID really doesn't work in that picture. So we do have extra fields that are available. And opening up the contributor information, those fields are found on the right-hand side over here. So here we have the Arlene Dowling, we have her envelope number, and then we have a field specifically called Vanco. And so this is what the Vanco ID is going to be looking at if it doesn't connect it with the envelope number. And since we've already copied Arlene Dowling's Vanco ID to the clipboard, we can just paste it directly in here and save that. So that then when I exit out of Arlene's record, I can scroll down and kind of see if there were anybody else that I needed to kind of correct. And some of these, very similar. If I wanted to do the same thing, it lets me know, oh, there's a Rick Nelson. And if it doesn't detect that there is a Rick Nelson here, then I can add him as a contributor as I need, or I can just have him be another giver if I wanted to. If it says that it is an invalid fund, We scroll over here, and the Vanco fund name is Vanco Fees and Benevolence Fund, so 99 and 14. That's probably where you would use that override if you needed to. So I can go ahead and put in either 99 to go to the general fund, or I can just say those two, they can just go to the general fund. I don't need to create a benevolence fund or a Vanco fee fund if I don't want to, and just attribute those to those funds. And then once I've kind of addressed anything that I had an error for, I'll download them again, and they should be gone. Should being the keyword. And then once those statuses have been addressed, then I can start working on, exactly what I want to post and, if I need to create a batch from it. So here we have the unposted and not in a batch. We have a few other views that are available as well. If you find that maybe you're worried that maybe you're downloading the offerings, maybe you've made some duplicates or something else, you can also look at these other views as well, and it will let you know if there is an unposted batch back here in contributions that's waiting to be posted that includes one of these offerings. If there, for any sort of reason, there were any that could not be posted, which it looks like for these, it was just because they couldn't be deposited. They weren't deposited yet, which makes sense. And then any sort of offerings that have already been posted for this date range, so that you can make sure that you don't create any of those duplicates as well. So it just offers just many of those different views, just so that you know that when you go back here to the unposted and not in a batch, when you go to create a batch, other than the ones that cannot be posted, you should be able to create those batches accordingly. And here I have 0 ACH batches and then 3 credit card batches that will appear in my contributions now. And now they're also in a batch waiting to be posted. And then back here, I can see that it's just the ones that have not yet been deposited that are still hanging out here and haven't been brought over into Shepherd staff. So now that I've already created my batch, I've created the batch of everybody that can be posted. I'll go ahead and close this. And you can see that those Vanco batches have been brought over. You can reopen them, but since they are imported, not a lot of things can be modified just for the sake of data integrity. But just like you can for a manual batch, you can also create a batch entry report if you so needed, with or without those giver names. Then in addition to the Vanco and then kind of exporting and re-importing, we also have an other giving source. And so this is kind of using just an Excel file, either a CSV file or a text document for another giving source. So this could be from another software, just anything like Thrivent, I think, and Tidely. If you're able to get a CSV kind of spreadsheet, we can see if, possibly you can import those offerings as well. When you go into the other giving source option, it does require a spreadsheet format. So if you are interested in taking advantage of this, I would recommend going up here to this little question mark here. It will take you to an article on our Help Center that tells you all of the headers that you need to know, and just the different steps for the process, and how to select each one of these, and then also how to actually import them as well. So all of those steps are available by clicking on this question mark button here, it will open up in whatever your default browser is, and it will let you know exactly what it is that you need. If you have any questions, then you can certainly ask us here in support, and we can help troubleshoot with you. So just because there is so much to go into with that, you have to have a file already available. I don't have that, but you can certainly troubleshoot and see what can be imported. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out for that. But that is definitely something that we have brought in due to feedback from our customers. Then after that, we have one final way to import, other batches from another source. In this case, it is using our web-based Webtools here, which is available to anybody who has a registered database and is on an active support contract. This is definitely very helpful if you're like working from home and you have that list, and then you can just access it from online, enter that in, and then when you're finally back into the church, you can then import it. To access your Webtools, just going to exit out of here real quick. Up here on this top menu bar, there should be a little cloud icon more further over to the center of the window, and clicking on this has Webtools information. This will let you know if your database has been registered. If you need any help with registering your database, please feel free to reach out to support. We can definitely get you hooked up. And then once that is registered, then every once in a while, you'll want to go ahead and sync just to make sure that the Webtools site, always has the newest contributors, has all of their envelope information, just making sure that everything is in sync online. And then when you are on here, you can also see this Webtools link. And so this is the URL that you're going to use when you're at home to access Webtools. And so you can click on this clipboard to copy it to your Windows clipboard and then send the link, in an email so that you have it, at home. Or you can visit it just directly on this computer by clicking on this globe icon. Clicking on here, it will take you to a screen that looks very similar to this. You're going to log in with the same credentials that you would use for your Shepherd staff. So in my case, I will use sysadmin. And you'll be able to enter in both attendance batches and offering batches here. So that when you go into offering batches, we'll go ahead and click on add a batch to start. We'll choose the batch date that we're entering in for these offerings. When we click continue, then we kind of have an entry row that's very similar to the one in Shepherd staff. Where you can then also choose if you wanted to repeat any of the areas, any of the fields here. You can also search for particular people if you need to, or just scroll down with this kind of drop-down menu. For the Freemans here, I'll select them. Then I can select the fund. This should also still work with people who prefer to use the keyboard as well. If we wanted to, we can put in 50, we'll put in 50. If we know a check number, we can put that in. Same thing with description. And very similar to the manual entry for offerings in Shepherd staff, if you want to, you can choose to just kind of repeat so that you don't have to keep scrolling through each of these particular fields. And then clicking on add, that's going to add in that new line item. Then from here, you're going to choose that next person and the next fund, whatever the amount is in this case. and then click on Add. Once everything is finished, you can either edit any of these line items, or you can delete the line item if you wanted to just start from scratch, if you just wanted to create the line item again. You have that option. Once you have put in all of your offerings, you'll click on the Save Batch button, either up here in the top right-hand corner or in the lower left-hand corner. They both do the exact same thing. Saving that batch, then it's going to be constantly in process. So this just means it's in a work in progress and to not download it just yet. But whenever you are ready, you can either reopen it and add in a few more people, or if this is ready to be downloaded, you'll click on In Process to make sure that the status is ready. And so that's just basically all you need to do while at home. Then when you get back into the church, you'll go into Shepherd Staff, you will log back in, and when you open the contributions module again, you will see here that when you click on Import Webtools, you will have that batch available for you to bring down. So importing that, it will say it's completed, and we can close it, and then we can see those additional people down there. So we have that ability in various ways to import from those various sources. Then once you have all of your batches, regardless of how it is that you've imported them, you can either post them all, or you can post one at a time and just kind of make sure that those deposits are on the right dates. If you're creating an attendance batch, you want to make sure that it's the right event. If in doubt, I would do it one at a time. I don't think you're going to have to do a post all very often, but you just have those different opportunities whenever you need to. But once you have created those deposits, everything is already posted, then this will be empty and you'll be ready to move on to the next task. So after I've droned on and on about all these ways of entering in these offerings, now we can actually kind of go into some of the different views that show different reporting and calculations that are available, just depending on what it is that you're looking for. In addition to the batches, if you're ever looking for just particular offerings, if maybe you've updated and you wanted a batch entry report, you could find in offerings a specific date range in the search area here and find a list of all those offerings if you need. Any of these different views, even if they're pledges or contributors, there is an export and print options for many of them. So if you're looking for contributors and wanting a contact list, or want to make mailing labels really quick, or even creating the giving statements instead of having to go into the other reports, you have that ability in many of these different views. And this extends also to the summaries tab over here. Many of these are just different organizations on much of the same information, on just depending on whether or not it's by day and by fund, if you're interested on what was given specifically on what day. If you wanted to kind of group by fund and then also see what each fund is receiving each year, you have that ability. And then also, even if it's just by fund and by year, but also just in a different kind of format, that might be easier to read for your councils or for your congregation, anybody that you need to report on. There are just many different views that you can then filter, either by what is total given, or if you wanted to see different pledge information, whether something was given from pledges or not from pledges. In other areas, you can enter in search criteria if you needed to, if you wanted just a particular year. or a particular date range, you can select that as well. If you want just information on a contributor, you have that option here as well. Just many different ways of seeing the same information, just kind of tweaked just based on what other people have been looking for. And then hopefully, this would help with people finding the report that works best for their administration. Then further along, when looking at the analysis option, this has a few other more report kind of view or more vibes relating to kind of either their inactivity. So with behavior, we do have the various ways of kind of seeing if contributors have given, if they haven't given, if maybe they've pledged but haven't given just yet. Just many different situations to offer for, just a singular view and singular report. Whatever it is that you choose, you can then choose the date range that they have given or haven't given, whether or not to include gifts in kind or skipped envelopes. It's just completely up to you, or if it was a specific fund that you're looking for. Whenever you have these selected, we'll click on the Find button, and you'll be able to see that list available, where then you can also export, you can print, or you can create a subgroup if you needed to send out like a mailing list or something. Just anything it is that you need, everything can be grouped up pretty efficiently. Another option here, we have another report or view that we have would be the top givers area here, where you can either select all envelopes or if you wanted just specific members. If you chose a particular date range, then it will show however many top givers it is that you're looking for. And you can either choose to print off this report either with those names, or you can also hide those givers' names as well. So if you're just looking for just the top givers, then you just have those amounts as needed. For the giving patterns, this also gives quite a bit of customization options here. Whether you're looking for the sum of what was given or even just a count, you have these many different aggregation options here on how they calculate. If you're looking for like comparisons across years, you have that ability to increase the amount of years that are chosen. Then also on the ending date, if you're just looking for progress as of this point in time for each year. For each of these different aggregations, you can choose either like a month or maybe a larger period of time, like a year. And then you can kind of show even further detail, even further breakdowns by choosing either like a fund, where you can see each fund for each year, or if you wanted to show, their pledge, whether or not it was a pledge given or not pledged given, and then also divvying it up by giver as well. So you can just see more and more dimension added to this report as needed, just based on whatever information it is that you're looking for. And then we also have the giving ranges here, depending on whatever range of givers that you're looking for. You can choose these specific range cutoffs. If you're not looking for 50 to 100, you can change exactly how you want to divide these all up. And once you have all of those cutoffs put in, you can select either a specific fund or leave them all blank to select them all, clicking on the Find button, and it will show you those number of givers and then those total amounts that are given in those giving ranges per week. So whatever it is that you're looking for, we have these many different calculation views that will hopefully be very helpful to you. Then getting back into the other reports, I mostly focused on just the contribution statements, but in other reports, we have many different options as well, including the envelopes box labels. where if you are looking to create those labels that include that envelope, you can print them off either for a range or for all envelopes. You can include any information that you're looking for, including that either the current or the upcoming label. So if you decide to renumber early, then you can generate those labels earlier so that they're ready for the turn of the year. For any sort of export, if you're going to be using another envelope program, if you're going to be sending it to like CPH or something, you can download that into a spreadsheet program. Same thing with the pledge mail merge if you needed to. If you needed to just kind of create a spreadsheet to send out to a third party, you do have that option. For different references, if you're just needing to have just a list of your contributors for your counters, you can create that cross-reference and print it off as needed. And then we also have these different giving records or giving reports that you can choose your date range and then exactly who it is that you're going to be showing and then exactly how it is that you're going to be comparing these different giving amounts. So a lot of these were moved over from previous versions of Shepherd Staff to make sure that you still are able to get all of the information that you got from previous versions, just maybe in a different area. And then the same thing with the giving by household, giver, and fund, and then also the pledge progress. Pretty self-explanatory. It just lets you know exactly who is ahead and behind, both by just giving or if they have had a pledge that is available for you to read. So in addition to all of these different views and these reports, if you are working on your day-to-day tasks and some unique situation comes up, we also have some utilities that might be helpful depending on what situation it is that you find yourself up against. And going into tools and settings just lightly, we do have the ability to customize field names. So in addition to that Vanco field, if you're using some other e-giving option that you might be importing from Excel if you needed to, you can rename Vanco or any of the other giving IDs to whatever you need for your records. So you can definitely customize those. For some settings, you can choose to not include nicknames. So if you definitely want, Richard instead of Rick to be on those tax documents since they are official, you can choose to not use nicknames instead. If you want to include attendance badges for offering badges, you have that option. Or if you don't want to, you can uncheck this box so that all other attendance badges can be manually created. Just completely up to you. Then we have these other utilities that are available. I didn't get into too much for renumbering since that is usually a year-end sort of task, but you can definitely renumber your next year envelopes whenever it is that you need, and you can definitely create that for the upcoming envelope numbers and print those labels off as needed. If you have already renumbered those envelopes, run the utility, or change the upcoming envelopes manually, whenever you're ready to start using those next envelopes, if you're ready to make the upcoming the current, then you have the ability to move them all over by starting to use next year envelopes. If you need to renumber giving IDs for Vanco or for any other import option, you can renumber them here. For pledges, for people who want to add in pledges, in mass, in addition to the multiple add option, you can use these utilities here. If those pledges were added in after they've already added in some offerings, you can run the utility to make sure everything is connected. And then you can also repeat those expired pledges as well so that you don't have to recreate them if you don't need to. Then we have just a few data cleanup utilities. For cleaning up contribution data, there is this option to remove anything that's older than 10 years old. You are not required to clean up anything in order to move on to the next year. It's just completely your office's preference. I say if you want that historical information, keep it because it's not going to make that much of a difference as far as how big your database is. So I say, if in doubt, keep it. Otherwise, you can clean up to those records that are older than 10 years. If you find that you have maybe a married couple who want to give to a single envelope and you want to move all of their givings together, we do have a combination option here. We also offer that for things like duplicate records if we needed to add two envelopes together for the same person. You can also swap between two envelopes if you make a mistake and you need to maneuver them, then we have that utility as well. I haven't run into that, but it's an option. And then we also offer the ability to fix an offering batch that's been posted to the wrong date. So after it's been posted, typically you would have to go into each individual offering record and change that option unless it is that date. So if you do have an offering batch and you just made a mistake on the date, you can run this utility and choose whatever batch it is that you need to correct it with. If you choose to start using next year's envelopes before everyone is ready, you can undo that. We can go over that more in the year-end webinar. And then also rebuilding envelope names. This is just to apply to some specific errors related to envelope names if we needed to just kind of run that through back again. So I think for the most part, mostly the renumbering utility and then maybe combining contributions. Those are probably the most important utilities, as well as fixing the offering batch. Those are definitely the utilities that I would keep in mind if need be. But otherwise, most of these are just kind of whenever, a specific situation happens. I think I did address all that I needed to, and I'm droning on again. So let's just go ahead and get through some of the true or false quiz questions that I have, just to make sure that I'm hitting some of those points. And then afterwards we can have that question and answer session for anybody who still has questions. So let's just go ahead and start that PowerPoint again. No, let's not get started. Let's go to quiz. There we go. So for this quiz, the question is, a Vanco ID must be added to a contributor for an imported Vanco offering to be correctly attributed. For some of these, I think I just worded them weird. And then, if you guys do say that, or, if your poll question was incorrect, then, maybe it was that you were just thinking differently than when I was creating these questions. But the answer is true. They do need to have a unique Vanco or giving ID on their contribution record, but you can do that during the actual download like we did with Arlene. So then we can kind of just pick up on what isn't being connected. Then we can add that Vanco ID to that record and re-download it so that then we can have everything correctly attributed. So It is true, but it's not required to download it, but it is required to attribute it on the statement correctly. So, right. For gift in kind offerings, can they be credited towards a giver's pledge? I'm not sure if I went over that, so that might be my problem. Yep, I do think I forgot to go over it, so that is my bad. But we're going to go over it now. Okay, then. So it is true. So when you put in that gift in kind, you can attribute it to a pledge, just so you know it is being attributed to that pledge, showing that you have completed that pledge. It's not deductible, so since it's non-monetary, it wouldn't be deductible on your statement, but it can be attributed to the pledge only. So even if you pledge $100, if you gave $100 worth of baked goods, then you fulfilled the pledge. It just wouldn't be an actual deductible offering. So that was my bad. Offerings to two different envelopes can be combined using a utility. I don't know why I read that so weird. Okay, you all really quickly got that one. And that is true. So in the event like a marriage or a duplicate, those offerings for two different envelopes can be combined using that utility, so that then the couple can share that envelope and then also have both of their names on the contribution statement, so that when they file their taxes, it's for both of them. So that was definitely an easy one. Is it true or false that the summary and analysis views can be printed or exported for further customization? Okay, I think we got everybody who usually votes. So that is true. I'm honestly hard pressed to think of any view or even most reports that you can't export to Excel, or at the very least print. I don't want to say all of them, but 99% I would say, are available for export and printing. And just depending on what the treasurer or the council is asking, we can't think of every single customization that someone is going to ask for. So you can definitely export any of those calculations and then just kind of make your own graphs or other spreadsheets as needed. So we just definitely want to make sure that you have that information in any format that you prefer, so you can definitely customize as needed. So, okay, I'm going to bother you with only one more question. And is it true that attendance batches can be created when posting an offering batch? All right then. So that answer, let's go back. That is true. If you want to, especially if it's something that was physically given from within the church, it's hard pressed to not prove that, they have actually attended. So you definitely have that option, so that you can create an unposted badge in the in the attendance module, so that then, maybe someone can take that list and just add on to it, as opposed to having to start from scratch. Just if it works for you, great. If not, then, no problem. You can just create your offering batches and attendance batches separately, whatever works for you. So let's see, do we have any questions? I think Rod mostly addressed them, but I will double check before I get off here. But for anybody who does not have questions, thank you so much for your time. Please feel free to take note of our 1-800 number and our email number. You can also visit our help center, like when I was showing you that article. On the help center, you can request a callback. We have live chat. And then you can also leave a message, an email message from there as well. So just many different options, and we're happy to help however it is that we can. So thank you so much, and I will bid you guys adieu.